Welcome to our team Zoom, guys. Happy Monday. And I'm Amanda Villarreal. And tonight our topic is on meal planning. And I think this is a topic that all of us can benefit from. And even if you guys have some of your own ideas, we would love to hear from you. So feel free to share at the end or use the chat box and maybe throw some ideas out there of some things as we're talking through this that you might think of. So as we're talking about meal planning, I thought that this was a great slide. And some of this I actually pulled from the Better Health in 31 Days website, a lot of these pictures that are in this presentation tonight. But some of the things that we oftentimes neglect to realize is when we are not eating a balanced diet and getting a variety of foods, if you guys can see here of how many diseases are directly related to nutritional deficiencies. So if we're not eating what we should every single day, that these are things that, I can guarantee if I asked each one of you, you know of at least one person with something on this list, that they could definitely be related to some type of deficiency. So this is just one reason that we really want to start to look at how we can improve our diets and improve just our ability to be planning ahead. So if you guys are good at screenshotting, this is a great one to screenshot. I love this picture. If you guys are familiar with the old recommended daily allowance food guide pyramid that they used to have out there, it was more so divided as dairy in a small amount at the top. You had your grains, you had your protein, and you had your fruits and vegetables in a small amount in each quartered piece. And this is a newer guideline of a plate that I really like this picture. And I feel like this is more of an accurate graphic of saying, this is how we should be planning our meals. And fruits and vegetables, if you notice, are half of the plate, right? Not meat, fruits and vegetables, half of our plate covered. Our plant protein is a smaller amount along with our whole grains. So again, this is for many of us a totally different mindset of what we grew up with. And this can take a long time to kind of process of, wow, whole grains are not the majority of my meal. Or for some of us, we might think that the meat should be the main part of our meal. But ideally, if we are looking at trying to build health, this is what we would love to see on a daily basis of a more plant-based type plate. So wanted to, again, put that out there because I still think there's a lot of old school information out there on what a, balanced meal should look like. So now we would love to be able to try to get all of us to eat more vegetables. And I know that this is kind of it's common knowledge, right? But many people struggle with what to eat. And again, I like visuals and I like the colors here to just show you some ideas of just getting different colors and the different nutrients that are available with these colors. So, this is what we need to actually be incorporating more of in our diet. I'm guilty, I'll admit, as much as I know about health, vegetables are not my go-to whenever I need a snack. I have to focus on how I can get more in myself. And if you look at some of the nutrients that are loaded in vegetables, we have so many different nutrient sources that come from our different food sources. So if we're focusing on mainly one type of food versus what we just saw on our balanced plate here, we are going to notice some of the deficiencies that we had in our very first slide start to occur. And I know if I asked a lot of you too, if I asked you what you ate every day, I would probably notice a lot of patterns. Like, okay, I tend to eat a banana. That's my main fruit. I tend to eat, carrots are the only vegetable I like. And this is why we really have got to start making a plan and be thinking about how we can get away from things like fast food. And this is a great picture. This was actually from a friend, Suzanne. She has the same hamburger from McDonald's that is 21 years old now. And people have touched it. It has been through several different presentations and it looks the same as it did 21 years ago. And why do we bring that up? Because it's important we know if we're filling our bodies with things like fast food, those preservatives are preserving our food, but what's that doing to our bodies? Long term, we need to be focusing on health, and I don't think any food that can look the same after 21 years should be ingested and put into our bodies. So just something to be thinking about as we're talking about more whole foods being our focus. Now, when we look at prepping, I know this is, again, we've heard of it, right? How should we prep our foods? There are so many tricks that some of this is just trying to retrain some of our habits. And I know for a lot of us, that can be very difficult to do, right? Because we set in our ways and we try to, get in that set. We think these are healthy choices. but how can we start to do things like, you know, make a multiple array of foods at one time? For example, let's say you're making a salad for dinner. Why not cut up extra vegetables so you can put it in your kids' lunches the next day? Like planning ahead of how you can try to best utilize your time with your resources. And another thing that I think a lot of times too is, if you don't have junk food in the house, you're not going to be eating as much. So that's a great rule of thumb, right? But we really want to try to also just be knowing that we need to have those healthy options available. So if we have them, we're going to be that much more likely to eat them. So, and we never want to be focused on calling this a diet, right? We are focused on healthy eating, and we all need to know that we need to have options. And I know there are always different plans out there, everything from, different macro type focused diets to, you look at your Atkins type focused, your ketos. There's so many different plans out there. So how do we know where we should be directing our focus? And I have been doing this for over 20 years, and I tell you what, every trend will come and go, but so much of this is actually getting back to the basics. This isn't rocket science, to be honest with you. It really is getting our bodies to be fueling it how we should be, with getting lots of different nutrients, including that very first picture of that plate with all of those varieties of foods on there. Now, one of our main sources, though, that I do want to make sure we kind of highlight here is protein. And most of us, when we think of protein, we think of meat. That's usually the first thing that comes to our mind. But we also want to know of plant-based options. And I also feel like, because we're so busy today, having also options that are convenient are also very important. So when we go to things like a snack bar, for example, these are some of our favorites. Personally, we are huge advocates of using Shaklee snack bars and meal bars pretty much on a daily basis, even our kids for lunch. But if you're going to grab, for example, some type of bar, you want to know that, one, it actually doesn't have more sugar in it than anything else. If you look at the back of most of your Luna bars, your Cliff bars, the most common ones, you will actually notice that sugar is by far the highest amount of what you see in that product. And if you look at the ingredients, you're going to notice how many of those words end in ose, right? Sucrose, fructose, all of those are forms of sugar. So we want to be looking at how we can find simplified foods that are still processed in a way that keeps the nutrition intact and having good, clean protein. And these are all amazing plant-based source options that we love, for, using protein for smoothies to having bars and having meal bar options. That we also want to note that when it's a good plant-based protein and it's a complete food source, it's going to be low glycemic. So, again, we showed that food plate. I'm going to keep mentioning that because that plate was based off from low glycemic foods. We don't want to be eating, for example, on that plate, a whole thing of fruit, because yes, fruit is healthy, but it also can cause our blood sugar levels to raise, even though it's naturally occurring fruit. So we want to keep working on that balance of also trying to make sure we're keeping our glycemic index stable. And that's why we love these sources of protein. So I wanted to give you guys just a couple recipes throughout this, because I thought it'd be fun just to also show how we can implement foods that we might not necessarily love. Here's one that I am not personally even a huge fan of: kale. But why not put it into something to when then maybe, you could handle it when mixing it with something like this. And if you also notice, this uses almond milk. Another huge trigger we see in today's diets is too much dairy, that it causes a lot of sensitivities with gut health. So if we can try to keep the dairy down by using something like almond milk, this would be a great dairy-free recipe. So again, feel free to screenshot that and, try it out. Let us know what you think. And here's another good option. This would be actually you could use this for a lunch or a dinner, but just showing a salad option here. And, something that a lot of times just people don't think about is, making their own dressings. So easy. That is something any of us can do. You don't need to even have to measure a lot of times. You can just guess, mixing certain things together like lemon and olive oil. And this one has a Greek seasoning added to it. So great, simple recipe, very easy to do. And you can always add and take away if you don't like, for example, cucumbers, or you can mix it with something else. But it's just good to know of different options, right? And I think that's what I see in most people's diet when I'm doing nutrition consulting with people, that they tend to really just struggle because they don't know what to make. It's not even a matter that they don't want to eat healthier. They just don't even know where to begin. And we want to be able to help you guys. So we hope, when we share some of these things, that you think, that's a simple recipe, I could try that. And start creating even like a little folder of recipes you really like. I think keeping some things even still on paper is helpful for a lot of people as they're trying to get some recipes started that they like. Because a lot of times you might have it on your phone, maybe you take a picture of it, but then it gets mixed in with about 1,000 other pictures, so we forget about it. So, find a system that also works to kind of keep your recipes handy. So here's some ideas also for some healthy dinners. Just some ideas, we always talk about sneaking vegetables into as many foods as we can, because as I was saying earlier, vegetables should be our main staple in our diet. So even things like spaghetti sauce, that's an easy one to sneak vegetables into. We are a big fan also of, Shackley has something that's called a greens, and you could mix a scoop of that, and it's equivalent to a cup of spinach, broccoli, and kale. And it's just a great way to have a concentrated source of nutrients, and I don't have to go chop it all up. So again, we're busy. We have 5 kids. We don't always have a lot of time to do all the chopping and prepping. So anytime I can kind of cut a corner, I like to do that. And I know many of us, that's helpful to note that there are ways to do that to kind of make things a little more simplified. So roasting vegetables, throwing a bunch of things together, throwing on a pan, putting olive oil, salt, and pepper. It really is not a lot of work. It's just, again, having the ingredients in your home to do these things. Replacing things like tater tots with cauliflower potatoes. Again, very simple trading options. And sometimes too, for people who just don't like vegetables, add sauces. These are very easy, guys. And let's say you really love macaroni and cheese. Does it mean you shouldn't eat macaroni and cheese anymore because it's mainly a high carbohydrate food? Not at all, but try making your own sauce versus having all the preservatives and chemicals and colors that's added in a boxed version of that. So, there's just a very simple recipe for making your own cheese sauce. And even curry sauces, just to give something a different flavor. So here's a recipe for quinoa tofu tacos. Something, again, just different, another version of, we're all familiar with tacos, right? But just to add some different staples of protein. Quinoa is actually one of your most highest dense protein grains that you can eat. And putting in a taco, when you mix it with the toppings, it really does even kind of somewhat simulate the texture of meat, which is great. So, and the tofu in there, again, it might freak you out because everybody thinks tofu tastes terrible, but really tofu doesn't have any flavor. So it absorbs whatever you're putting it with. So if you can find an organic tofu, I do highly recommend using that. But again, it's a lot of using herbs and different flavorings to get what you want out of this. So again, just another recipe idea for you there to have another idea for tacos is a great dinner idea. Here's a quick little snack idea that I don't know if some of you are familiar with our energizing soy protein. It's another protein option. And again, love protein. We try to incorporate basically in every meal because again, I feel like it's such a foundational block for so much of our health. And this is a great little peanut butter fudge recipe. And you can mix it up by adding different add-ins like flax seeds or chia seeds. But the base is really peanut butter, honey, and soy protein. Very simple, no baking required. Anybody can make it, even kids. So thought I would throw that one out there as just a quick, healthy snack. You could roll it into balls, you can make it into bars, whatever you choose is easiest for you. But again, great healthy snack idea. Now, as we're talking about diets and meal planning, we kind of, went through what a plate should look like and gave you some ideas there. But we also need to remember that no matter what, there are so many things that have incorporated different tendencies of how our food is today versus many years ago. So even though we might try to eat as balanced as we can, we know we should eat every color of the rainbow. We can't always do that. And you want to think about where your food is coming from. And unfortunately, I'm thinking most of you guys are probably here in Michigan, and we are probably not growing things like tomatoes in our backyard right now, right? So they're being shipped from a really long ways away. And that definitely is going to play a toll in some of the nutritional value that food has. So to fill in the gaps, this is why we talk about supplementation a lot. I feel as though today's supplementation is not an option. I believe it's mandatory. And that very first slide we showed you on deficiencies and how it can lead to certain diseases, supplements can help fill the gaps that we might not necessarily be getting through our diet. But remember, there's also differences in supplements. We want to make sure we're using pure, whole food, nature-based options versus synthetic, chemical-laden filled options that are actually doing more harm than good. So let's get into here again, just kind of showing some other ideas of how you could sneak in some healthy options. And breakfast, I always used to teach clients, and it's kind of funny because nobody ever breaks it down, but what is breakfast? You're breaking the fast, okay? So you're rested all night. And I know right now there's a huge trend with intermittent fasting. And I do believe that there are some good properties to it, but I am hearing people doing that weekly. And when you do something like intermittent fasting, it is affecting your metabolism. It's just like our cleanse we do, right? I know a lot of us have done the Prove It Challenge. We work through the 7-day cleanse. We don't do that every month. That is something we do maybe a couple, 2-3 times a year, because you don't want to be, again, affecting your metabolism. So we want to be having breakfast every day. And having a good source of protein mixed with fiber and fat is a great way to start our day. So how could we do that? Eggs, perfect. Throw some vegetables with that. You've got a well-balanced start to your day. Let's say that you really like to eat cereal. Maybe throw some Life Shake protein on there to make it a balanced meal, your carb with your protein and your fat. Oatmeal, again, throw some protein on there, throw some nuts in there, something to, again, make it so you're not just having a high carbohydrate start to your day. And even just looking at how you can start to incorporate some of these things. Like I know kids are definitely more picky and can be more challenging, but you know what? We are also playing a part in how we are creating their habits. And we can make a difference in just doing little things. For example, let's say that your child loves apple cinnamon oatmeal, those little packets. If you guys ever looked at how much sugar is in one of those things, most of them, you probably have as much as a candy bar with sugar. It's amazing. Those little packets look innocent, but they're very high in sugar. So how could you gradually start to still incorporate that flavor, but cut down on the sugar? Mix it with a pack of plain oatmeal or buy your whole oats, mix them in there and start to gradually cut it back. Just like for people that go from whole milk to skim milk, or vice versa, I should say, however you do that. But, you can gradually start to make those changes so then they could start to, not notice it as much, and they will continue to grow on them and over time be able to eat it with the less sugar option. So, and remember, if you keep good food in your fridge, you will eat good food. So we need to make sure we're keeping that food around. And when we look at, the things that are happening in our bodies is a direct correlation with our food, guys. There's a lot of truth to that. You are what you eat. And I know, again, we're not perfect, right? We have to live. But we also want to know that when we're eating a lot of the foods that are causing inflammation, that can create so many different symptoms. Nobody would ever link things like heartburn or acid reflux necessarily to something they're eating. But it's amazing how you can start to create the correlations with food and how you feel. So we just want to start to notice those things and be more aware, and even where our food is, coming from, how it's packaged, doing simple things like switching out plastic water bottles, making sure we're not getting the plastic that's absorbed from those bottles, just making simple choices. That's what we try to teach you guys. And even these Zooms every Monday night, it's a different topic. We try to, inform you guys of just making simple changes, because that's what's going to help to create a longer, healthier life. And I think this is a great thing to end with, that those who think they have no time for healthy eating will sooner or later have to find time for illness. And that is our whole focus, is on planning our meals. Let's start to make the transition of thinking how we can incorporate better food choices. And hopefully, as we are learning, we can start to share some things. So I mentioned at the beginning that I would love to hear from some of you guys. So you're muted. If you guys have any maybe tips or tricks or things you would like to share, we'd love to hear from you. So if you want to unmute yourself, or even if you have something to add, we'd appreciate it. So.
We do a lot of meal prep on the weekends so that we can pack food with us. We have a mini crock pot that we take with us. It plugs into the car, so we can do like chilies and a lot of vegetables and that kind of thing to keep with us where we go. We substitute chickpea pasta for all of our pasta. It's a high protein, so that's super helpful. And we do a lot of plant-based, so like meatloaf, we do lentil meatloaf, that kind of thing.
Perfect. Thanks. Those are great tips, Jennifer. I think too, convenience, right? You found a way to make it work when you're traveling all the time. They have a crock pot in your car. That's amazing. That's such a, valuable thing you found to help you. So thanks for sharing, because that's a really good tip. And, personally, I'm a big fan of Instant Pots. I don't know if anybody uses those, but I love that you can speed up the cooking time for so many things that that's one of my go-tos. So, anybody else? Anything they'd like to share? Thanks, Jennifer. All right. Well, guys, as I said, this is recorded, so I'll make sure that I share this recording. So if you'd like to pass it along, feel free to. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording here.